Thank you for tuning in. This interview has been split into multiple episodes. If you have not listened to the previous content, you may want to listen to those episodes first. Enjoy the show.
All right, next question, and this one's an interesting one. I'm interested to hear what everybody has to say about it. But if you could have lunch with someone alive or dead, who would it be with and why?
I don't know. There's so many people. There's like thinkers. It'd be interesting to talk to dictators.
Yeah.
Napoleon or Hitler. Or
We actually talked about that, where it's like, man, as awful as it would be, like, how did Hitler get people to do so many awful things?
Well, it's not just Hitler. I think COVID is a great example of it's putting your foot in that water, dipping the toe in the water. Look how quickly, I've always said before COVID even, if a Hitler took over this country today, millions would follow him in America.
Yeah.
These are the non-thinkers, or worse, they're the evil people.
Yeah.
Right? But and COVID is a pretty good example.
No, I was surprised on how quick
we lost our rights.
Yeah, and how easily people were just okay with that.
Yep, that's what I'm saying.
They were just like, dude, are you kidding me? You're telling me you can't leave your house?
And these are the non-thinkers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was rather interesting. It was
a little disturbing.
It was funny. I was talking to one of our students here, and she's a real estate agent, and she goes, surprisingly enough, real estate agent were considered essential workers. Go figure that. I was like, seriously? And she goes, yeah, they considered us essential workers.
Well, but think about it. Everyone who has a job is an essential worker.
Exactly. I mean,
why are they having a job?
Because it's an essential part of
it.
So
this is how you always figure out who's in charge. Who gets to decide what's an essential worker? Who gets to decide what's an offensive word?
Yeah.
You know what I think is interesting now? These idiots say words are violence. This goes back to using the right word, right? So if words are physical violence, and they say they have the right to respond with violence, physical violence, if they deem that your words are violence, which is, you see this in the protests of all kinds of protests, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're speaking to me and I deem that what you just said was violent words, do I have the right to respond physically with violence? By their logic, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and if you think about it, especially for men, we've lost that governor in our head of, man, we probably shouldn't say this because someone may punch me in the face.
I think Joe Rogan or somebody says, that's the limiting. Men always have that, well, if I go too far, I'm going to get punched.
Yeah, I'm going to get whacked. And men have lost that ability to do that.
Well, it's been discouraged. It's been suppressed.
We're losing that ability, exactly, because everybody's a keyboard warrior. Like, they can say whatever they want online, and they have zero fear of somebody coming up to their door and punching them in the face. Going back to movies, there's a great movie. It's called Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, okay?
Who?
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, okay?
That's interesting.
Yes. The end of they make this movie about their life, and everybody online just trashes it. So they get all this royalty money from the movie, and they're like, what are you going to do with all that money? Like, that money could buy a lot of plane tickets, and they fly from city to city finding these people that wrote mean comments, knocked on the door, and just started beating the crap out of them. And I was like, that needs to happen again. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, that's exactly what needs to go down.
But it's like Rand Paul said, the devil's in the details. Who gets to decide which words are offensive?
Yeah.
Right? And that's where the power is. Who gets to decide what's, like they say, oh, that guy's too rich. He makes too much money. All right. Who gets to decide how much money is too much?
Yeah.
Well, I did to decide. Who are you?
Who are you? Yeah.
And they never want to do it as a double-edged sword.
Right.
Well, and that just goes back to like that email I sent you earlier. It's like, what's the definition of success? It's like success is defined differently by everybody else. So it's like, who says they make too much money?
Well, a lot of it would be based on your value system. What do you value? And if you value A, B, and C, and you're good at that, or you have that in your life, then you're successful by your standard.
Yeah. So
that email implied success was riches and fame.
Yeah, because that's what he's assuming people want. Because that's what he is.
And he should say that.
Yeah, he should, but...
Because, well, think about that. That when I read that email, I thought, okay, so the converse of that is if I don't sacrifice everything in my life, including my friends and family, and just get fame and success, I'm not successful. That's a big bar. And 99% of the people aren't going to do that anyway.
Yeah. No, and like some people feel success with if they have money in their bank account and food in their fridge and a dog.
What do we take with us?
Yeah.
That's the important stuff.
Yeah. But you still haven't answered who you'd want to go to lunch with.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can go. I'll tell you who I would go with. And honestly, it's very just personal to me. I would go with my grandpa. Okay. My grandpa never got to see me as a man. And I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with him, man to man, to talk about how he was when he was my age. And like, because he passed away. He was my mom's dad. And he passed away when I was like 8 years old. So like I remember him, but I don't remember the good parts because he died of cancer. So, but everybody that is on that side of the family always says that I remind him of him. So I'd love to be able to just have a seat, have a conversation with him and talk to him as an adult, as a man, see him and just like get to know him more because I feel like I was robbed that I never got to really know him that well.
But are you hearing things from your family about him and his character that makes you want to be like him or know him better?
No, and my mom actually tells me this story where it shocked her and brought her to tears. Where it was I was in high school and I had a job and I was like, okay, I saved up enough money to go buy some nice clothes for school. So we go to Nordstrom's and we're buying clothes and we're looking at the nice shoes and we're looking at these shoes and then I grab a pair and I'm like, these are the ones that I want. And she started crying and I was like, what's going on? Are these not good? And she goes, no, those would be the exact pair my dad would wear. And I had no idea what kind of shoes he would wear, but I would tend to gravitate and do things that I would do it and they'd be like, man, that's exactly like what he would do.
So you kind of feel a genetic connection.
Yeah, very much so. And again, not being able to like have quality time as an adult with him, I would love to be able to have that for just even like a day or a couple hours and just be like, man, like how did you turn out this way? What did you learn it? Is it just who you are? Like,
is he someone that the family members speak highly of?
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Was your question, who do you want to have lunch with that's not around, or
alive or dead?
Was the word famous in your question?
No, just alive or dead.
Oh, I see.
If you could have lunch with anyone, who would you have lunch with, alive or dead? So, but that's my answer. I mean, I would love to be able to do that for a day. So, but
someday.
Someday we will definitely have that chance to do that. But I'm impatient. I want it now. So that's me.
Yep.
So, but who do you got?
Oh, well, I'd like to have lunch with the Son of God, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I was gonna
if
say.
anything, I could order water and he'd turn it into wine.
There you go.
No
So
offense.
you're cheap, is what you're saying.
I'm very cheap.
And you could just buy one fish and you'd have food for everybody.
One fish, one loaf, and
Yep,
One
there you go.
chicken.
I'll have 3 take-home boxes.
There you go.
Multiply these for me, would you?
Hey,
Speaking of lunch,
No, I think being there at the time of the gospel, the New Testament would be. I mean, you couldn't put a price on that. That'd be something.
so
else.
you're saying to be around Jesus when he was on earth doing his thing. Have you seen the movie series Chosen?
No.
Have you?
Chosen.
The Chosen.
No.
You should watch it. I think it's on. Just Google The Chosen.
Yeah.
It's a really well done series. I think they're in their 3rd season now, where it's about Jesus, but it makes him relatable. Like he's this guy, but he's Jesus. And then they have all the apostles who are the tax collector guy. Is it Simon? He's autistic.
In the series.
Yeah, it's hilarious
Oh.
because he just says what he thinks, and he's working for the Romans.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a really well done series that makes Jesus kind of relatable. Like he's walking around in his robes, and he's tired, he's hungry, but he's got to talk to the masses, and it's not glorified in that sense. Oh, Jesus with the halo. He's just a guy, but he happens to be Jesus. And so he has that whole responsibility. And you can see some of the trials that he has to go through. That sounds like what you're talking about, like be one of his followers, like the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, I would like to see that'd be interesting, because we're always putting, I mean, rightfully so, we're always putting him on that pedestal and be like, is he just an average guy that had extraordinary abilities to, connect to the masses, or did he really resonate like that aura of the Son of God? Again, we don't know because we were never there.
But you can only have lunch with him,
Yeah,
I know.
not just follow him around. That's not the question.
yeah, only lunch.
Who would you follow around? That would make sense.
It'd be a long lunch.
Because I was even thinking Satan would be interesting to talk to. Because
Yeah.
he was an angel of light, right? And what went wrong? Well, he wouldn't say wrong, but why did he go the way he went?
Yeah,
And what are the ramifications? Have you ever read the book of Enoch?
no.
It's a really thin, it's kind of like, it's in some of the Bibles, but it's a biblical, he's in the Bible. They mention Enoch. Well, he has his own book. And what's interesting about it is it talks about all the fallen angels and names them.
I only thought there was one.
No, there was a bunch of them, and they all had, there was
A third of
captains,
them.
and I think there was 200 of them.
Oh, wow.
And there was captains, and then he doesn't name all the people, just the captains. Azazel's one of the names I remember. They're cool names, actually. But they all taught different things. And the book of Enoch describes that. And then the other half of the book describes a lot about the heavens and I kind of got bored with that, but I think I need to go back. And it's a fascinating book to get. And these angels they came to earth to mate with women. Like we want earth broads, right? But they gave up their angelhood. They were supposed to be the watchers over man. But instead they came and they taught us war, and they taught the women about makeup, and but also about medicine and all this other stuff. And I guess it's stuff we weren't supposed to learn.
So is that where they possibly got like the Greek and Roman gods?
I think, I don't know if I think this, but the theory is those are the Nephilim, the giants.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I remember you talking
And that would make
about
sense. So
Yeah.
the book of Enoch is different. It's the fallen angels.
that. Okay.
And it's a fascinating book. You can probably listen to it online. I know there's a guy on YouTube that just reads the book. I think
Okay.
it takes 2 hours, but
Enoch.
it's the book of Enoch. And it's, anyway, I don't know where we got off. Oh, it would be interesting to talk to some of these fallen angels, like or Satan. If you were the son of light or whatever, and you were next to God anyway, then you got an argument with him and Jesus, like take me to, and then you go, fine, and you follow me, guys, and a third follow him. You think if you were at that level that you would know better,
Yeah.
but apparently not.
Well, you would think that being an angel and being basically second in command and seeing the stuff that God can do, you'd be
And what you can do.
exactly.
Sometimes it's good to know who the bad guys are and why they went bad. It's just as valuable as knowing what the good guys do, right?
We actually talked about this last week.
Who did?
Like society has been becoming obsessed with the bad guy.
They're idolizing villain stories.
They're idolizing villains, and like even in like the movies and this and that you bring up a very good point. Like a lot of these movies are depicting on how these characters went bad, and it's like, well, I don't care, they're bad, but it's like, well, no, it's like you need to see their side of the story.
Were they always bad? Were they
Yeah.
born bad? I mean,
Exactly. What turned them bad, or what caused them to be a bad person?
there's a really interesting true story about a guy named Carl Panzram. He was this horrific murderer. But it's interesting because when you read his story about being a childhood, it was, and I'm using the word horrific accurately. He had a horrific childhood. He was out on the streets not just on the streets, but with the hobos traveling around when he was like 12. And he got raped by a bunch of hobos one time. So he had this horrible life. And then as he got older and bigger and stronger, he started killing people,
Yeah.
right? Mostly men. And then
Yeah,
he ended
'cause
up,
men hurt him.
I guess so. But it was like he would lure them and then rape them and then kill them.
Well, kinda like
And then
what
he
was
eventually
done
got
to him.
caught and they were trying to electrocute him or something. And he's like, this is ridiculous. I could have killed 6 guys by the time you guys are trying to kill me. He was evil to the end.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. when you want, and this is on a lesser level, this goes back to insecurity people who are insecure. If you understand why they're insecure, it gives you a little bit of compassion. It doesn't mean you accept and are okay with what they're doing, but you're not angry inside at them. You're like, okay, this guy had a horrible childhood.
Yeah.
With this girl, this woman.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
So anyway, it's important to know what the bad guys, how they got there.
All right. Well, moving on to our last question. And it is, how do you build culture and maintain it?
You're building it by just doing whatever it is you're doing.
Okay.
So like, as we know, Fred Villari Studios had a culture.
Yeah.
Charlie's United Studio had a culture. We have a culture. And I learned this when Rodney King got beat and they fired Daryl, the chief of police, Daryl, somebody. Anyway, I thought, why'd they fire the chief of police? He was probably home when that happened.
Yeah, he wasn't in there beating them.
And that's when I first understood about the culture.
Yeah.
Right? And they were like, well, he had the culture and that's why they beat him. It turns out Rodney was a scumbag. Anyway, that's when it made me aware of the culture. And so I think leadership determines the culture.
So how you behave and act and present yourself is ultimately what you'll cultivate.
Exactly. And if you have power over people, i.e. in a job, hire and fire, right? And say you're telling your employees they got to do something that's maybe a little in the gray area legally. Well, that'll be the culture of that company or that institution. Or strict on it, like in Jeanette's culture and close to my heart, she's very, very honest. So the culture was about honesty.
Okay.
Right? Oh, we could get away with this or that. No, that's dishonest. So that's where it comes from. The tone is set, starts from the top. That hospital you were talking about where Doc Chris worked?
Yeah.
Similar to that culture. Well, look at campus universities. All these people are not critical thinkers, to say the least. They're all useful idiots, and they're protesting the wrong stuff for the wrong reasons, and it's being condoned. And that perpetuates a culture of, this is okay. Your behavior is okay at our university.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
No, yeah.
Do you see anything, something different? I mean...
No, I agree. Like, what do you think, Stephen?
Culture starts with you, and once you're in, like you said, a position of leadership, if you don't squash the bugs when they appear, you'll have to get a new house because the termites will eat it.
Each dojo has its own culture to some extent, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And each dojo or each studio takes the mentality of their chief instructor, and it trickles on down to like TruMotion takes the mentality of you and Master Martin. And you have to make sure that you are putting out and doing the right things. Master Martin talks about it in terms of like a greenhouse. It's like you have to know how to control the temperature. You have to know how to control the humidity. Why? So then everything can grow appropriately.
It's all about control.
A little bit. And, but then that kind of contradicts the point of like showing people what to do and then turning them loose. I guess that's where the individual culture comes in the dojo.
Well, what you've just pointed out too, we touched on, is the meeting of two different philosophies.
Yeah.
And maybe there has to be a balance of the two.
I definitely think it does have to be a balance, because if you're too controlling, you're just going to create little micro copies of you.
Automatrons. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now we're back to, we don't have free thinkers. We just have followers. And again, there's nothing wrong. Well, there is something wrong with just being a follower, but
if you're following, being a follower is not bad in and of itself.
No,
it's who are you following and why are you following them?
Exactly. And then I think each TruMotion has its own culture collectively, but I think each dojo needs to have its own culture collectively.
It's not that it has to have it; it will have it.
It does. Yeah, like ours here is kind of laid back, for lack of a better term. Like we like having a good time. We like being skilled. They like sparring, but they don't spar with like the intent of like, let's see who can dominate who today. It's like the intent is like, hey, let's see who can help who get better today.
Well, I think our testing, if you look at testing over the last 20 or 30 years, drastic change.
Very much so.
When I came up and back in the olden days, old-timey days,
it
was more of a hazing, and I guess just hazing and just kind of punishing people to see if they could take it.
Oh yeah, I
And
remember those.
that's not really the way it is now.
No, and I'm very, very thankful for that.
And that's a change in the culture, not to mention the laws of society. And
Yeah, but I think we'd be out of business.
the culture in society has been saying, oh, that's less acceptable. Because back in the 80s, 70s, and before, karate was an underground thing. Not many people knew about it. Not many people took it. Right. Now it's very mainstream.
Yeah, very much so. Almost too mainstream, but that's okay. No, yeah, I agree. You definitely have to have that. You have to cultivate a good culture, but yeah, you have to make sure that you allow people in that setting to be themselves.
That's why I think our motto, building better people, it's very important if we do something about it.
Yes.
It is more than just something on the wall.
Yeah, no, we got it. It's on the wall.
That's one of our jokes.
That's one of the okay. So what had happened was, for the longest time, we'd always be like, yeah, we're here to build better, and we'd look for the saying on the wall at headquarters, and it was never on the wall. We're like, oh, okay, I guess
I'd
we're
point
not.
to building better people, and we look at this blank wall.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, look how never mind. So that's a very much an inside joke with the instructors in terms of anytime we say the building better people, and they just start.
With the gesture.
I guarantee if you go up to any of a group of the instructors and be like, man, isn't it nice to build better people? They'll start looking around at the walls to see if there's a sign there.
But let's go back to that, because that's a simple but profound statement. How do you build better people? And a lot of what we just talked about is a component of building a better person. Critical thinking is a component to building better people. In fact, it may be a critical component of building better people. Two criticals in one.
Yeah.
Wow. One concept.
Critical squared.
Critical success.
Oh, that could be a good patch.
Yeah, critical squared.
C squared. What's that
C
mean?
squared. There you go. No, we can make it. So
Then it's up to us as a organization / culture / instructor to make efforts to actually have people do something to better themselves. That's why I encourage reading, or now it can be looking. The internet has tons of great information if you look for it.
No, oh my gosh, like Stephen's way better at this than I am, but like I guarantee you are too, sir. But just like if there's a problem and you don't know how to do it, like you can figure it out on YouTube in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
If you really spent the time. And you're like, are you kidding me? That took me 2 years to figure out.
Everything's on. Yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, the point is, it has to become a habit to build yourself as a better person, to constantly be looking for ways to build you. It could be physically, mentally, and emotionally. Those are the most common components, right? And they're all different skills.
Yeah. Very, 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 very much.
Mentally and emotionally are kind of linked. Well, so you could say so is physical, right? Discipline and so on. But
yeah, I mean, there is that physical aspect to it, but that's such the easy one to do.
You have to be mentally strong to be physically strong. In other words, to make yourself exercise and eat right. That takes some mental
And then
power.
once you're eating right and you're exercising, suddenly you're mentally stronger.
Or are you not doing those because you have emotional issues, right? They
Interesting.
talk about eating too much because you're sad.
We haven't even touched on spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah.
We kind of talked about Satan.
Yeah,
Satan
but
and
strength,
Jesus.
spiritually strong. Are you?
Is he weak? You're saying Satan's weak.
No.
Yeah.
So you're saying Satan's strong and you admire him.
No, I'm not saying that either. But
Can you admire Satan, and can you admire someone who's evil? Donald Trump got accused of this. I think you can admire certain qualities. It's unfortunate that they went to evil goals. I mean, let's take classic Hitler. You got to admire what he did. He turned Germany around into a world power. He just went a little too far.
Now, is it admire? Is that the right word, or
taking a note of.
Maybe respect would be a better word.
I don't think I'd respect Hitler, but
No, respect what he accomplished.
yeah, because I agree. I get what you're saying, but like, I wouldn't want to admit that I'd admire Hitler,
Right.
or I wouldn't want to admit that I respected Hitler.
Well, maybe you're right. It's a slippery slope.
It is, but at the same time, it's like you've got to be astonished.
Well, he wasn't all bad, He believed in like healthy eating, no smoking, exercise.
He was a vegan. He was crazy.
That's a little too far.
Crazy.
That's pretty bad.
A vegan painter.
Well, that's the real problem.
That's
Never mind
the
the
real
people he
painter.
killed.
Yeah, are you kidding me? A vegan painter?
But you see, and I think Donald Trump even said something about dictators where he admired their strength or something. Oh, he likes dictators. No, that's different.
Yeah. No, but I get what you mean. It's like but I don't know the term, the right term to use.
Well, dictators, let's say, got to where they are.
Recognized.
Hard work and perseverance.
You can recognize the
Acknowledge.
thing. Acknowledge. That is probably the great term right there. I can acknowledge Hitler did something. Like he did.
Now they immediately get into is it good things or bad things?
Yeah. Well, it depends on who you're talking to.
It depends on your value system.
Yeah.
And so that's why it becomes tricky. But all people who've accomplished great things, good or bad, have certain things in common.
Yeah.
The difference would be their values. Now that I'm thinking about it. Right?
Yeah. No, And like, I think we talked about this the other day or on another podcast. Rome, is it good or bad?
Depends which end of the shield you're on.
Yeah, kind of. It's like Rome did a lot of good things.
Genghis Khan.
They did a lot of bad things. Same thing with Genghis Khan.
He got a lot of people to get in line.
Yeah, and he still has ancestors out here today.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because that was one of his things is he tried to basically repopulate the world in his image.
Personally?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, like he probably fathered thousands of kids.
Not on my 23andMe. I'm not part of that.
Yeah, that's crazy. But no, I agree. Building culture, you got to make sure you're building the right kind of culture. And that goes back to building better people.
And your values.
Yeah.
Better is a relative term. But
Yeah.
what do you mean by better? This is another thing that Jordan Peterson also is very good at. Someone says something like that, building better people. What do you mean by better? Your defining of words is important. It's like my truth.
Yeah.
You mean your perspective.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting thought. Is there any such thing as absolute truth?
I don't think so.
I do.
Because everybody has a different, their own version of truth.
Doesn't mean they're right.
Well, yeah, no, it doesn't mean they're right, but that's what they...
So could absolute truth be out there? We just haven't got to that point yet on whatever given subject.
Possibly. I mean, there's probably something in that realm, but I don't know if we'll ever see it.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah.
So the first one is there such a thing as absolute truth? And you have to say yes or no. And then you can talk about, well, we just don't know, or we're working on it, or there's... But you have to address the yes or no first. Right?
No, yeah,
Here's another one. Is there such a thing as unconditional love?
Yes.
And before you can answer that, you really have to get a definition of what you mean by unconditional
Yeah,
love.
because I was going to be like, because we have mothers, but yet not all mothers treat their kids the same.
That's a different topic.
Yeah, because we have mothers that are like, you see it and you're like, oh my God, that really must be what love looks like. And then you have mothers that don't want to have anything to do with their kids.
It's the unconditional. Well,
Yeah.
both of those terms have to be, what's love and what do you mean by unconditional? Right? I say there's no such thing as unconditional love.
I would say yes because of mothers.
So what do you mean? How are you defining unconditional love?
They will do anything for their child, whether what their child did was right or wrong.
So if they're a mother and they have 5 kids and one of the kids, say is a teenager, drug addict, beating up on the other kids, stealing from the parent home, bringing bad friends around the younger kids, taking the car without permission, maybe crashing it or getting in trouble. Is that acceptable?
Well, they will love them because he's theirs, and they will do what they can to help him.
That's not my question.
Is it acceptable? No, but that's not saying that they don't love him unconditionally.
Right. So you could have love, but still have boundaries.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know where it's classic is someone cheats in a marriage.
Yeah.
Right? I thought you loved me unconditionally. Yeah, but you cheated. Yeah, but so you still love me, but I think Jesus has conditional love, right? To get into heaven, you can't do certain things.
Yeah.
That's a condition.
Yeah, they got those 10 rules. So
It's 10.
no, yeah, that's true. Or 15. I mean 10 rules. The 10 Commandments. Another Mel Brooks movie. But what that was the history of the world. Have you ever seen that?
I think so. Long time.
Moses comes out with 15 rules and 3 tablets, and he's like, I've got these 10 commandments.
That's a good.
What were the laws, commandments?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That was another scene where I just laughed like an idiot.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, those are great. Making fun. So I think there's love, but love has conditions.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And conditions are defined, I define them as boundaries, like acceptable or unacceptable behavior, unacceptable behaviors. Like my brother-in-law, right? 30 years of plus as a drug addict. No one in the family wanted to talk to him anymore because he was kind of not physically dangerous, but he would threaten to sue people. He came to our house one time a few years back he just drove up with a pickup and some other homeless guy was in his car. We're like, you can't come in the house.
Yeah.
If you have to use the bathroom, let me know. But so they slept in the truck out in the driveway because it was not acceptable or maybe not safe. We don't know this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know who he is.
So here's a family member who everyone loves. He was a great guy at one point, but he chose to become unstable / drug addict, which is why he was unstable. Therefore, was not accepted by the family. That doesn't mean they don't love him. It just means it's like, we love you, but can't be around you. That's
that is true because, yeah, we all have that family member where you're like, God, we are family and I love you.
But. And I think the problem becomes when people use the term unconditional love to force you to accept behavior that they're doing.
It's very
well. If you love me unconditionally,
yeah,
fill in the blank.
Okay, when you phrase it like that, then yes, that does make sense.
That's just the converse of what we were saying.
Yeah, yeah, because it does have you do need to lay boundaries with just about everything, including love and relationships and yeah, it's wild, but yeah, we could derail on topics like that all day.
But those are the kinds of things I think people should be thinking about.
Well, and have conversations like this with other people. Like we can say we have it all the time because we talk to each other all the time. But outside of maybe 2 or 3 people, how many meaningful conversations do you have a week?
And here's another thing people do, and this is why communication becomes difficult. And it happened here. We talk about unconditional love, but then you say, yeah, but, and then you add another variable. Mm-hmm. And then we're talking about that variable. And people, you have to separate, okay, first, is there or is there not unconditional love or truth? Yes or no? Because then you can start bringing your arguments in pro or con.
Yeah.
But people bring them in too soon, and now you're sidetracked and going down a rabbit hole, and then there's another variable, and then another variable. This is why people fight constantly and don't resolve much.
Yeah, no, that.
And once you're aware of this concept, and you'll see it when you talk to people.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I see it all. Or they do it when they don't want to answer something.
People do it reflexively, to avoid being trapped or to try to win their argument. Or, oh yeah, but you did this or you said that, and they'll add another variable.
I don't want to give a definite answer because I don't want to be wrong.
That's my dad. Like that's his quote unquote trick. Is like if he doesn't want to answer something, he'll just add another comment in to start talking about that. Like, right. Diverting this, side comment, like let's divert this comment somewhere else. That's his way of he doesn't.
But once you see it, once you're aware of that, you see it all the time. Yeah. Now it's like, can't fool me.
Like, stop. No, we're not done talking about that. Yeah. Reverse.
Bring it back.
Yeah. And these are critical thinking skills, and these are important. It's learning to communicate effectively and accurately.
Yeah, no, I agree. I say it all the time, and Shanna sort of agrees with me, sort of doesn't. And this just goes back to communication. Like the number one key to any relationship is communication.
I always said 9 out of 10 problems are communication oriented.
Yeah, exactly. Well, going back to your movie quote, what we have here is a
failure to communicate.
It's very true.
And another thing is, what people have to is intention. Like, because I get this a lot because I ask direct questions. Well, my intention is good.
No. Direct
Which part?
questions.
My intention or my direct questions?
Both. You mean you have direct questions?
What?
Get out of here.
What's up with that? But once you get to know the person, know their intentions, a lot is forgiven, or is like, or vice versa. If you
no,
think
I agree because I know we've had direct conversations with a lot of stuff, and if we didn't have the relationship we did, it'd be like, God, this is what a jerk. Like, who's he to say this and that? But it's like, no. Okay, take a step back. Let's actually listen to what we were talking about. Yeah, there's some truth there. Like, these are things that we need to address and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? But yeah, people have a hard time with direct people. Like, that ask direct questions.
Because they're insecure.
My mom is very much that way, and she has a hard time communicating with people because they don't like how direct she is.
Is she direct rudely or just bluntly?
Just bluntly.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't come across, she's not trying to be mean to him,
Right.
but she'll ask him a direct question.
Right.
So there's no ifs, ands, or buts on what needs to be discussed.
Do you know that shirt doesn't look good on you?
What were you thinking wearing that color?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you pick that out on purpose? Did you dress in the dark?
Did you dress yourself?
Yeah.
And it's usually,
It shows.
and it's usually something like, well, why did you do that? Or like, what's the meaning behind that? Like, it's a why question.
And that's a good one because are you putting me down or are you genuinely interested in why I did something?
Exactly. But yet it seems like everybody, and it's mainly her family that's this way, her extended family. Anytime she's having conversations like that and she asks questions why and direct questions why, they're always like, just don't worry about it. And like, oh, you're too blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I don't understand. Like, I need to know why.
Right.
Please tell me why.
And
You don't know why, then say you don't know why. And
That's
okay.
the obstacle like direct people have to overcome is like, so I've learned to preface it like, hey, I'm not trying to hurt you or insult you or whatever. I put some qualifier on there. But could you help me understand what, here's my problem. That's a lot of work
Yeah.
to go put all the qualifiers in. So I just ask the question.
Yeah.
Skip the qualifiers. But it goes smoother if you start, hey, I'm not attacking you, but I just want to know.
Yeah. We have a running joke Master Martin does where he goes, if you're ever talking to a parent and they say with all due respect,
You're about to be disrespected.
oh God, you better buckle up, buddy, because you were going to feel it. Yeah. And that goes back to Will Ferrell, the Talladega Nights. You remember that scene where he's like, well, with all due respect. And then he just blasts people.
Bobby, Ricky. Or
Yeah, Ricky Bobby. He's like, just because you say with all due respect doesn't mean you can say whatever you want after
Give you a
that.
pass.
Exactly. But no, honestly, like I really appreciate these conversations because they don't happen much anymore. And they need to happen more and more frequently with more people, not just with like your immediate group of friends.
You got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
I mean, I agree conceptually.
Yeah, it's like, start with your friends and family. Get comfortable talking about certain things. Get comfortable about talking with things you don't agree with and being able to have discussions on why you don't agree with those things. Because we've talked about it before, and I think we talked about it with Tony when he was on the show. It's like, dude, I don't want everybody to agree with everything I do. That would be boring as hell after a while. So you want to have different viewpoints and different perspectives to help you grow as well.
But as we said earlier, whatever your perspective is, you have to be able to justify it and back it up.
Yes.
And if you can't, then you have to be secure enough to say, oh, I have a hole in my argument, and either get further information to bolster that, or be willing to say, maybe I'm not right.
Yeah. And most people don't want to admit they're not right.
That's right. And then I think Jordan Peterson talks about this. You become married to your perspective at some point. It becomes your identity.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous thing because now you won't change no matter how blatant. This microphone is black. No, it's not. You know the story about I think I told you this, the donkey and the tiger arguing about the color of the grass. And the donkey's like, the grass is blue. It's like, the grass is green. Blue, green, blue, right?
Yeah.
He goes, all right, let's go to the king of the jungle and have him resolve this argument. So they go to the lion, and the tiger says, we're arguing about the color of the grass. The donkey says it's blue. I say it's green. And the lion looks at the tiger, and then he looks at the donkey and goes, well, the grass is obviously blue. And the donkey's like, I told you so. And he struts off all happy. And he goes to the tiger. He says, you can't talk for 6 months. And the tiger says, well, I respect your judgment, but we both know the grass is green. He goes, of course it's green. You're being punished because you argued with an idiot.
Yeah.
And there's some truth to that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No, oh man, there's some quote. I need to remember it. I can't remember it. But it's like, nothing ever good comes from arguing with.
Yeah, it's like teaching a pig to sing. It's waste your time and annoys
Yeah.
the pig.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, that's it. It's a great lesson. It's like you have to, and at some point you have to know when you need to be like, okay, this conversation's not going anywhere. Like we either need to stop or like, let's move on.
And it becomes an ego thing. Like, okay, what, do I really care if you want to believe that the grass is blue? Why do I really care?
Yeah, no.
I'll say it's green. You'll say it's blue a couple times, and we'll go, all right, you know what? Whatever.
Yeah, and another lesson Shanna's taught me is like knowing when to pick your battles. Okay, like what hill are you willing to die on?
Is that the battles she picks with you are always willing to be picked, and you shouldn't pick any of the one?
I would hope not, but no. It's usually when I'm dealing with Jamin, and it's like everything I see that I feel like I can help him with. It's like a very important thing to me, and she's like, I want to do it,
But
like, don't do it.
Would it be fair to say you have a certain standard in your head that you think he should achieve?
No, very very much so. It's
Right.
like you're trying to teach him to become a man and take responsibility and growing up and this and that. And Jamin's doing great. I mean, for being on the spectrum, I mean, he's doing fantastic, and he's got a job, and he's making money and this and that. But it's like he's still got a lot of growing up to do. And it's like I would always work on like just everything I could was like a big deal. And she's like, you gotta tone it down. It's like he's only gonna listen for so long.
And you can't overwhelm it.
Yes, exactly. And she's like, I wouldn't talk about it. She's like, I know you want to talk about it, but now's not the time. Just don't do it. Sometimes I listened, sometimes I didn't. And when I didn't, she's like, I told you so. I'm like, I know, damn it. It's like, you don't need to say it, but it's very much so. It's like, okay, is it worth arguing about what color the grass is? No. Like,
Well,
hey.
that's a little different when you're trying to instill good character and good ethics in another person / your son than arguing with an idiot. Like, I see what you're saying. There's limits. You got to choose your battles. Like
Yeah,
you said.
you can't every issue you see, you can't bring it up like it's a never-ending problem. It's like, okay.
Now, your son aside, if you're dealing with other people, then you have to ask yourself, am I bringing this up and trying to argue for my ego? Like, I feel good if I can tell you you're wrong and then fix you. That makes me feel good. Right?
Interesting. I've never thought about it that way. Like I feel, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but if it's an outside of a teaching realm like karate, like I don't really like to talk about issues with people because I don't want people to feel bad. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like,
Why would they feel bad?
Well, because maybe you're bringing up something sensitive to them. And
Why is that your problem?
No, it's really not. I make it my problem, and that's the problem. No,
I'm throwing the questions at
no,
me.
that is the problem, and I understand that. It's like I tend to burden other people's problems, which is my problem in and of itself.
I don't understand what you just said. You tend to burden other people's
So,
problems.
like, if I know it's going to be a big deal for them, like I sympathize with them, and it's almost my big deal now. And it's like, no.
Are you saying you don't
it's
want to hurt
theirs.
their feelings or put them in an awkward position?
Yes, very much so. But yet at the same time, it's like, okay, if we don't address it now, it's going to become a bigger problem later.
I'm kind of like that too. I feel bad for other people.
Yeah.
And I'd rather feel bad for myself than make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Ironically.
It's interesting.
But the more you learn to talk to people, that changes.
Yes.
Like I felt more like that when I was younger.
No, and again, that's an issue I've been working on, and I've gotten a lot better at it. But I'd always make other people's issues my issues.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you can't do that. It's like you already have enough of your own crap going on.
But then you have to ask, here's where the introspection comes in. Why? Why do you feel that way? What is it about you or me that puts you in that position? It's all inside. Mm-hmm. What they say, your worst enemy is in your head sometimes.
Oh, yeah, very much so. I completely agree with that. But, Stephen, you got anything else to add on to these?
Nope.
Okay, well, moving on to our final subject.
Is looking at you, kid.
It's our weekly shout out. So to end the show, we always try to highlight one or two people and give them what's called a shout out. Okay. So if there's anybody in your life you would particularly like to be like, yeah, I want to highlight this person in my life, this is the opportunity to do that.
I think it would have to be Jeanette.
Yeah.
She is struggling with being physically incapacitated to the point where she can't do much, if anything, for herself. Mm-hmm. But the way she handles it is stoic and impressive.
Very much so. The very few times I've had a chance to interact with Jeanette, man, she's very gracious. She's very kind. Like you said, very stoic. She's not, you know that obviously she's dealing with something most of us will never have to deal with. And yet she's doing it with a, like you said, a state of grace and like stoicism to where you're like you look up to that. You're like, God, I don't wish that upon anybody, but if I had to deal with an issue like that, I hope I deal with it like she does.
And I respect that. And she's setting a great example for everyone who's watching.
Exactly.
Well, look at her. She's immobile. Mm-hmm. But it's like she went down to work today and said goodbye to Monica, our vice president. And
that was probably hard.
And she spoke, and it was hard for her to talk.
Yeah.
But she had the little microphone, and she was still. So I respect her. So I'd say that would be the person I'd think of.
Yeah. And I'd honestly, I'd expect nothing less from you in that answer. So, Stephen, who you got?
Oh, come back to me.
Okay. Well, I'm going to shout out my parents. They're actually going to be traveling for the first time by themselves since my dad retired. It's a big deal for them.
Where are they going?
They're going to Alabama to celebrate my grandpa's 100th birthday.
Nice.
Yes. Wow. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Diaz.
In the Confederate Army?
That's the Union. No.
The Union. He was in Alabama.
No. Yes, he lives in Alabama now. But if you talk to him, and he's full of crap when he says this, and I'm telling you right now, says he was born in Staten Island, New York. No, that's where he immigrated from, Grandpa. He was born in Cuba. Okay. But if you talk to him, he was not born in Cuba.
He was born again.
He was born again on Staten Island.
I was born when I was 18 years old.
In Staten Island, New York. Yes. No. My great-great-grandpa, he moved from the States to Cuba to find work because there's no work in the United States.
Cuba.
Yeah. So
there's no work in Cuba.
No, there's no work in the United States.
Oh, so why did he move here?
He moved to Cuba.
Oh.
To find work. Then he found love, got married, had 2 kids, my grandpa and my uncle Will.
In Cuba.
My great-great-grandpa was the cigar roller. So he would roll cigars, and then when they got to a certain age, they immigrated to the United States. Now, this is where it gets fuzzy because, again, my grandpa doesn't admit he's anything except American.
That's how it should be.
Which he's patriotic through and blue, like through and through. I don't know if my grandpa and my grandma immigrated with him or if it was just my uncle and him. That's something I don't know. Did
they all end up over here eventually?
At least the 2 of them did. I don't know if my great-grandma did, great-grandma Kuka.
So she may have stayed in
She
Cuba.
may have stayed. No, I think she made it, but I don't know about my great-great-grandpa. But I do know at least those 3 were over here at some point. So, but yeah, no, he won't admit that he was born anywhere else but the United States. Like you're Cuban, Grandpa.
Yeah, but now how long has he been in Alabama?
Since 96.
Where before that he lived in the North?
No, he's always been kind of in the South. Well, he was in the Air Force until the 70s.
The Confederate Army didn't have an Air Force.
Yeah.
Not that you know about.
No. So he
submarines, sort of.
They had one.
He was in the Air Force until I believe the 70s. He flew combat missions in Vietnam and the Korean War. And he flew 22, and then he blew his eardrum out on the 22nd.
Was he helicopters or jets?
He was jets. He's a fighter pilot. His actual tag name is Blue Leader. So
Blue Leader.
Yeah, Blue Leader. So and then when he was grounded, then he became more of the officer style where he was, touring bases and this and that. So they were always stationed everywhere across the country. Like my dad was born in Arizona, and then a couple other family members were born somewhere else. And then they spent time in Panama. So my dad spent like his high school years in Panama. So when he retired from the Air Force, he went to work at Miami International Airport. And he was in charge of the grounds He was in charge of the grounds for X amount of years. And then he retired from Miami International as head of security. And then lived in Miami for a little bit. And then they moved to Dothan, Alabama. So my grandma was born in Tuscumbia, Alabama. And I always wanted to talk to both her and him about this, but I never got to talk to her about it because she passed away before I could. is, if you think about it, they were an interracial couple back when that
Before.
was not very popular.
That's why she stayed in Cuba.
No, they were in the States. This is my grandma, not my great grandma. So my grandpa Diaz, like, he was a darker skinned guy, dark hair, like you could tell he wasn't a white guy. Marries a Southern white girl. Like, I would have loved to have talked to him to see how that would have gone down. But I never really had a chance.
Maybe when your parents go, is it your grandfather? Who's
Yeah.
100? Does he still mentally?
Oh, he is as sharp.
They should get some stories on tape.
Oh, this is what's awful is mentally, he is sharper than anybody I know. Physically, he's 100 years old. His parts are wearing out.
Yeah.
Like, he's too bad hips. He can't get hip surgery. His heart's wearing out. It's like, it's honestly time for him to go.
That's why they should get as much as they can.
Yeah, no, I told my dad this. I go, don't want to sound
Maudlin.
weird or like, but like, I feel like he's not going to be around too much longer after this. Like, because all of his kids are coming down
Yeah, it's
there.
a nice goodbye.
It really is. It really, really is. I go, enjoy the time with them. Don't cause fights, because my dad and my uncle seem to fight all the time. I go, don't start any fights. Just let Grandpa be relaxed. So shout out to them for flying out to Alabama, spending some time with them. You know, I wish I could go, but that's besides the point.
Right.
So, yeah, I could spend all day talking about stories with my grandpa, but he was a very, very, very interesting man.
That could be an episode.
There we go.
It could be an episode. So, but
All right. Well, I got mine. I'm going to shout out all the people who came up to me during the tournament and said, "Hey, we like your podcast."
that's awesome. We did
Thank
get one
you
or two
so
people.
much.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And thank you even more for sharing it. That's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
I appreciate each and every one of you. You know who you are. And that's who I'm shouting out this week.
There you go. Yeah, Craig, definitely Craig. He came up to me and said he likes the podcast and he listened to the one where you were on it, and Kelly and all that stuff. So it's nice to hear that people are actually listening.
How do you find it?
It's on Apple.
Anywhere you get your podcast
I will
now.
look it up for you before you leave. On
I
your
don't
phone.
have Apple anything. I mean, I have.
We'll get him a membership
Yeah,
card.
well, I did give him a membership
You've
card.
got a card?
Yeah.
Yeah, just scan the QR code.
Oh. And that'll take me to the podcast?
It'll take you to how you can listen to
You
it.
should put that on the window.
Yeah. Yeah, we
QR
should put that
code.
on the window.
And people can scan it and then what they want.
See, look at that. Talking about great ideas during the shout-out program.
That was a freebie for us. Thank
Yeah,
you.
there
No, I
you
didn't say it
go.
was free.
Well, I just,
We'll be paying for
I'll
that.
edit it so you'll say it was free.
We'll be paying for that in sparring class. But
Yep.
like Stephen was saying, make sure to share the show. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Spotify. We're on
Anywhere you get your podcast. Look
yeah,
us up.
basically anywhere you
TruTalk
get
Tuesdays.
your podcast. New episodes launch every Tuesday. We may be launching a bonus episode next Friday, depending on what we think, because our last episode with Doc Chris, that sumbitch talked for 3 hours, very, very long. So
for 2.
yeah, we're going on 2, so we can't get this guy to shut up either. So, but
That reminds me, another thing.
I'm sorry, it was a technical difficulty. But again, sir, we appreciate you taking the time, coming out, chatting with us. I know you're a very busy man, and I always want to make sure your time is never wasted.
It's not. I always
So-
enjoy coming. So anytime you
So we'll
want.
definitely make sure we have you on for part 3 of the Lynton saga, and we'll see
we
what
could
new
tell war
things-
stories.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just do war stories. So I know you got a lot of good ones. So
I think the statute of limitations is over on all of them.
I think so, especially for you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So that'll be good.
Get the non-redacted notes.
Absolutely. But thanks for spending the time listening to us, and make sure to kick it with us next time, guys.
With us next week. Bye, everyone.